वालेकुम नाज़रीन, असां हिन वक़्तु मौजूदु आहियूं मिलवॉकी में जेको विस्कॉन्सिन रियासत जेको शहर आहे जिते हिन वक़्तु रिपब्लिकन पार्टी जो नेशनल कन्वेंशन थिए पियो। हर 4 सालनि खां पोइ जॾहिं सदारती इलेक्शन थिए थी, ॿिन्ही पार्टियुनि जा जेके आहिनि उहे कन्वेंशन मुनक़िद थींदा आहिनि। हिन भेरे रिपब्लिकन पार्टी जो कन्वेंशन मिलवॉकी में थिए पियो ऐं मिलवॉकी जे अंदरि हिन वक़्तु मेलो मतल आहे। 4 ॾींहंनि जो इहो कन्वेंशन आहे। उन हवाले सां पूरी दुनिया मां जेके आहिनि मुख़्तलिफ़ सहाफ़ी हिते पहुतल आहिनि ऐं उहे जेके आहिनि हिक ॿिए सां उन खां अलावा हज़ारनि जी तादाद में रिपब्लिकन पार्टी जा जेके आहिनि उहे कारकुन बि हिते आहिनि, पर उन सां गॾो गॾु सीक्रेट सर्विस, पुलिस ऐं पूरो हिकिड़ो मेलो मतल आहे। उन हवाले सां असां हिन वक़्तु अमेरिका ऐं दुनिया जी जेका सूरत हाल आहे उन हवाले सां ही अमेरिकन इलेक्शन्स उनखे कीअं इम्पैक्ट कंदा, उन हवाले सां असां सां गुफ़्तगू करण लाइ सुज़ैन लिंच साहिबा सां गॾु आहे। मारूफ़ सहाफ़ी आहिनि ऐं ब्रसेल्स में हूंदियूं आहिनि ऐं हिन वक़्तु उहा पॉलिटिको सां लाॻापियल आहिनि ऐं उन हवाले सां उन सां गुफ़्तगू कंदासीं। सुज़ैन, थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर योर टाइम। I would like to ask first question, how do you see the environment here during this national convention?
Well, I think it's a very different convention than usually because we've had a dramatic couple of weeks in US politics. First of all, we had the debate about President Biden's fitness for office, but then that has kind of been shoved off the news agenda now following the attempted assassination of Donald Trump at a rally in Pennsylvania on Saturday. So because of that, this was always going to have a different atmosphere, a different vibe, and I think that's very much the case. I think there was a lot of expectation and hope by the Donald Trump supporters that are here that he would make an appearance on the first night of the convention. He did, and the atmosphere in the venue was pretty emotional. Donald Trump was a bit more subdued, I think, than he usually is. He appeared with a bandage on his ear, didn't speak, but waved and stood there as the crowd looked on last night at the convention.
Do you see a change Donald Trump after this incident of shooting? As you say that he was calm and he was, do you see any change in his personality, in his behavior?
I do see a change. I think this has been a very different kind of atmosphere here, particularly in comparison to many of his rallies which I have attended, particularly during the last presidential campaign. Much more febrile atmosphere there. Definitely the mood is different here. However, I think the big question will be, will this last? Is this just a temporary new Donald Trump who is chastened, who's humbled a bit, who is probably quite shocked at what happened with his near-death experience? But whether this new mood and new atmosphere is sustainable, I think that's the big question.
Do you see that the confidence of Republicans, which we have as watching here in Milwaukee, they think that they have won after, especially with this incident of shooting? How do you see this confidence level?
Yes, I think the confidence is very, very high. I think that's one of the reasons for this shift in mood. I think they feel that this is within grasp now, and the polls seem to be supporting that. Trump is probably going to get a bit of a bump in the polls from what happened on Saturday, and probably since the nomination of his new vice president. But I think they are confident. I think that they feel that Biden is a weak candidate, and that suits them, of course. So I think you're feeling a sense of optimism in the air at this convention, and maybe that explains why they don't want to jinx it in a way. They want to just kind of keep a low profile, keep this steady, and they believe bring it home in November.
Do you see that this confidence can be considered as overconfidence, and when you are overconfident, you have negative results at the end of the day?
Yes, I mean, it was a point made by the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, earlier in a conversation with Politico, where he warned Republicans of being too confident and saying it was going to be a dogfight, that this battle was by no means over. Now, he is in a state that has become extremely important for Democrats and Republicans, a swing state that was a very close run thing during the last election. So of course, that is why he's bringing that perspective to bear. But yeah, I think he's warning Republicans to handle this in a certain way. I mean, polls also are notoriously difficult to predict. There are a lot of variables, so we're not, nobody can be sure. But at this moment in time, if the election was to be held tomorrow, I think it is emerging now as a very, very possible win for Donald Trump.
as a countrywide support for Trump is, of course, it is evident that it has increased after this incident. But do you see, when we talk about the American elections, that is not about the 50 states. Practically speaking, it is all about 5 to 6 or 7 states, which are called as a swing states or battleground states. Do you see there is a lot of such big impact on those battleground states?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. That's what it comes down to in US elections. And actually, the profile of some of these states have changed over the last few election cycles. So, states, for example, like Florida, which was famously a swing state, it's an important state because it's got so many electoral college votes. But Florida has become more deeply Republican, really, in the last few years. But yes, there's going to be a lot of focus on those states, and that's one of the reasons.
Simultaneously, Ohio used to be a swing state, but it is no more a swing state.
Exactly. So, the demographics change, people's political affiliations can shift too. But all eyes will be on these states. I think that's why it's significant that Donald Trump has picked J.D. Vance to be his running mate, because he hails from some of those swing states, those Rust Belt states. And the very fact that Trump and Vance are going to appear this weekend in Michigan together suggests that Donald Trump wants to harness this energy and potential he now sees with the Vance appointment to try and win over supporters in states like Michigan.
What kind of policy difference do you see between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, or Republican and Democrats?
I think one of the biggest change would be in foreign policy. There's a different perspective. Trump is much more of a nationalist, much more of a protectionist, whereas Joe Biden's whole career, particularly when he was chair of the Foreign Relations Committee in his years in the Senate, he was very committed to the transatlantic alliance in particular. People in Europe, I think, are quite concerned about the impact of a Donald Trump presidency on that relationship, but also on support for Ukraine. Donald Trump has questioned current policy towards Ukraine, so we would expect a shift there. On other issues, I think there are more similarities, though. Israel, for example, both Donald Trump and Joe Biden are very pro-Israel. And also in China, President Biden has continued a lot of the policies introduced by Donald Trump on China, particularly when it comes to trade. So we may not see much of a difference if Donald Trump wins the White House in November.